Hello and welcome to Torsey Waldridge Kitchen Gardener. It has been an absolutely amazingly productive year so far, and we've still got so much more of the growing season left. So let's just crack on with some jobs and stuff that you guys can be getting on with. Here I am in my sweet corn and sunflower patch. I spoke at the beginning of the year of doing a lot more companion planting to aid beneficial insects and good plants to put with other vegetables. So obviously I've got these absolutely stunning cut flower sunflowers, so they are a particular variety for cutting. They look absolutely amazing in a vase, and also as well interplanted with the sweet corn. So this has worked out absolutely perfectly. I'm really happy with this. It's a great use of space, and I have got a few pumpkins plonked in around the bottom because there is that three sister rule, but instead of using beans I've just got my sunflowers instead of beans. And also as well I've done a bit of successional sowing, so this lot of sweet corn and sunflowers were planted a lot earlier than these guys, just so instead of getting, you know, 65 sweet corns all at once, I will get say 30 sweet corns, and then because this crop is a later one, you'll get 30 more sweet corns later on in the season. And also as well, the same as with the sunflowers, you know, nobody can use this amount of sunflowers unless, you know, unless you're trying to sell them, and then you'll get sunflowers later on in the year. So successional sowing is great if you've got the time and you're able to do that. So this is a Locus Pre Bush, and you'll most probably find if you guys are growing any soft fruits, especially your loganberries, sunberries, tayberries, blackberries, you will find that you've got all of these new clean shoots with no fruit on them. Be very careful with these. So the deal with your loganberries or blackberries is these new shoots that is produced will produce next year's fruit. So you want to be really careful with these and tie them in nicely to whatever framework that you've got, because what you'll be doing soon come autumn is you'll be cutting out all the old stems which have had fruit on them. So anything that has borne fruit on it this year, you'll be cutting those out right back to the base of the plant, and all of these new clean shoots with no fruit on them will be your fruit bearing shoots for next year. But come autumn I will take you through this. I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware that all of these nice clean shoots, make sure you leave them where they are and tie them in and keep them good, because that will be what bears your fruit for next year. This is my strawberry bed that was planted up in 2016. Some of the plants are looking really healthy, some of them are starting to look really ropey, and if we look down here, you can see the leaves are really healthy, but if you open it out, the crown's very congested. You've got these really thick woody bits, and the plant now is not as productive as it used to be. So they say strawberry plants normally live, or at their most productive, between their first and say their 5th year. These are now 4-year-old plants and looking a little bit sad. This year has not been a particularly productive year for them. They've started to go over the edge. So with some of the strawberry plants I will start to replace them. So this bed here is a reasonably new addition to the veg garden. It previously was one of my veg beds, but I decided to turn it into fruit just because I wanted a little bit more fruit going on in the veg garden. So we've got tayberries, loganberries, blackberries, and it's all intercropped with strawberries. So these strawberry plants are only a couple of years old, and as you can see I've actually let them send out lots of runners. The benefit to that is you can then multiply your crop. So if you want more strawberry plants, or you're replacing old strawberry crops, which is what I'm doing, then the runners are a great way of doing it. The only thing you have to bear in mind when you are using runners from your plants is make sure that your parent plant is nice and healthy. These are absolutely fine. They do suffer with a virus, so as long as your plant looks healthy, then you can take the runners. But if your plant's not looking healthy, don't take your runners. The genes will just go through to the new baby plant, and then you will just have a well full of paint. So it's always good to, you know, start your new crops off in as healthy as you possibly can. So the best thing about growing on bark, obviously I've got them around raised mounds, so the plant can obviously fruit down the mound onto the bark chip. It stops so much slug attack, and also as well with the bark chip, as you can see with this one, it's rooted really, really well. So I can now just cut the runner or umbilical cord and pot that up, and I've already got one strawberry plant to replace the old crops with. So you can crack on with that now. It's the perfect time to do it. The plant will develop nicely, and you can always either stick it in a pot or whack it straight into the ground wherever you want your strawberries to be. So this is my celery, one of my celery squares. I've got another one behind me. They say to sow them in blocks. That's mainly to exclude the light, especially with the centre ones. Gives you that nice blanched white stem. It also shades out the sun because they like it quite moisture retentive soil, so it is a very, very thirsty crop, the same as celeriac. So you have to make sure that you can keep on top of watering, otherwise these will bolt. I was a bit worried about them at the beginning of the season because they got the celery leaf miner, which isn't particularly great and can make the plant turn bitter. So I'm really, really hoping that hasn't affected it. The only control of that was obviously to pinch the leaves off, where you normally get a little pocket where the leaf miner has split the leaf through injecting an egg into it, and if you peel that open you'll normally find a maggoty grub living in the leaf. So I've just tried to remove all of those. I've discarded the waste. I don't ever put those sorts of things on the compost. So far it's looking pretty good, really healthy, lovely green foliage, and I'm really, really happy with this. You can start harvesting them from now onwards. It all depends how, you know, tender and nice you want your crops to be. This is a F1 hybrid called Victoria. Really, really nice, stringless variety, lovely and sweet. And as I say, if you give it enough water, it'll be lovely and succulent. So this whole bed is dedicated for onions, intercropped with carrots as my companion planting to help deter carrot root fly, which is obviously a massive problem. I do use EnviroMesh just to give me another helping hand, so I have two helping hands, EnviroMesh and the onions, because obviously the onions smell really, really strong, so that is meant to deter the carrot whitefly. As you can see though, all of my onions have started to lay prostate on the ground, which is great. It means that they've come to the end of their life and they are just putting what is left in the stems back down into the plant as a storage. And you just want to wait until the leaves start turning yellowy. This is a great example here where the stem, you know, really starts to collapse, and it won't be long now, maybe next week or the week after, I can start harvesting these. Then I will put them on a racking system in a polytunnel or a glass house, anywhere warm and dry, just to get that curing stage, especially if you're curing your onions to store for over the winter months. That's really important to make sure that you cure all your crops before you put them into storage for winter. And this year has been a really good onion crop for me. So whereas I've had a garlic failure, I've obviously done really well with my onions, and I'm really, really happy about that. But like with everything, like I say to everybody, you know, it doesn't matter how experienced a gardener you are and how many years you've been doing it, you're always going to get your failures, but you've always got to think positively and look at all of the successes that you've had in your growing season. And mine has definitely been my onions. And because onions are one of my favourite crops, I am very, very chuffed. And hopefully somewhere in all of this lot will be show bench quality onions where I can hopefully maybe bag first prize. If you guys at home have been growing your summer broccoli, I've already harvested my main heads, which you can see down in here. The main head is gone. I never take the whole plant out. I always try and cut it to, you know, the leaf nodes. And this way you create yourself little broccolis, which, you know, you could almost call like a purple sprouting broccoli. And this is your summer one. So if you have got your broccolis, you've harvested them, wait for them to produce more of a broccoli crop, then you get lovely, sweet, tender, smaller broccolis around the outside, and that way you're maximising your crop to the most. So here I am in another sweet corn bed. So I've done the normal sweet corn cobs over the other side of the veg garden, just because I don't want them cross-pollinating. And also as well, I've grown the sunflowers with the sweet corn, which is my companion planting and a great use of space. That has worked really, really well. And also here I have got the mini baby corns. So they're the ones that are really quite expensive in the packs that you buy from the supermarkets or your local farmer's market. And they produce the really small, undeveloped corn on the cobs. And they look absolutely amazing. I've never grown these before, so this is exciting to me to see how they're going to do. I've also successional sown these, so I've got them all the way from the top tallest ones. These ones were obviously planted a couple of weeks later, and then I've got one row at the front, which is yet again another couple of weeks later, just to keep that harvesting season prolonged for as long as I can, so we're not getting it all at once. In with that, this is the pumpkin bed, which has gone absolutely mad. I'll show you in a minute a few of the pumpkins that I've found, because you just sort of leave these crops a lot of the time, I find, just to crack on with what they're doing. You might put a sprinkler on them every now and again, but really once you've planted it up, I just sort of walk away until they're looking near to harvest. Then you'll come and have a bit of a poke around and you'll be like, oh my gosh, we've got pumpkins, we've got little baby corns. I haven't yet harvested the baby corns. I need to keep an eye on them, because I was told the other day it's very quick to harvest and you need to catch them. It's quite a vital point to catch them. Let's hope that we get a really good baby corn harvest this year. So these were my sweet peas this year. They have done wonderfully, wonderfully well. I have learned also as well that all of my sweet peas were sown before Christmas, and I whacked them out into the ground really, really early, and I did 2 frameworks. So I've got this one and one over the far side. So what I've learnt this year from the sweet peas is I'm going to do one crop before Christmas as an early crop, and then I'm going to sow another crop just after Christmas in the new year, and hopefully that will just prolong the growing season, because I've inevitably ended up with a lot of sweet peas at the beginning of the year, and obviously where the main leaders have stopped, all the little side ones are very, very short stemmed, which isn't a problem, but they're not as good in, you know, you can't get a massive bunch and with beautiful long stems for flower arranging. So I'm just going to do 2 sowings of sweet peas and plant them out, plant obviously one out earlier, another crop out later, and hopefully I'll extend that sweet pea season, because these are definitely coming towards the end of their life, and they will all be removed. So ideally I'd like to have sweet peas that see me through the whole of the sweet pea growing season. What I absolutely love about this bed, which is part of my perennial bed, is that normally at the back it's left blank. Over the winter months I have my asparagus in the middle, followed with these beautiful step-over apple trees that I planted a few years ago, undercropped with lavender, which the bees are absolutely buzzing like crazy. It's trying to create that, you know, biodiversity with your insects. Getting your insects to work for you in the garden is so extremely important for just the whole, especially if you're organic. It is one of the key things to do. And as you can see behind, the beautiful sunflowers are really starting to go for it now. So as my lavender starts to slightly die back, the bees will then follow onto the sunflowers, and it will just be an absolute massive colour. And then it'll all go back to the ground, then the asparagus will come up in the spring, and we'll be just doing the full circle again. So this might seem a little strange, especially if you're new to vegetable gardening, that you need to start thinking about what crops that you're going to be growing and sowing over the next up and coming few months that will then see you through your spring and early summer. And those crops are mainly going to be your garlic, which should be your autumn and your winter planting garlics. you need to think about if you're going to grow first early onions, which are a Japanese bulbing variety of onion. So they're an overwinter variety, and also your spring cabbages. So that will be part of your brassica family. So for me, as a vegetable gardener, my new season will start, so basically my new year as such starts in August, September. That is when the new season starts, and that's purely because if you look at it in the sense of I've planted everything I need to plant for this year, it's all out, it's all growing. I've now started to really harvest, so all of those tender plants that you would have planted at the end of May, they're all in the ground, they're doing absolutely fantastically, and we're now harvesting them. And apart from a little bit of successional sowing that you'll be doing, which will mainly be your salad crops, because all of your larger crops will have been planted out by now, that will then see you through into those winter months, and we're doing absolutely fantastic with that. So this is the end of my year and the start of my new year, and with the start of my new year, that's when I start thinking about next year. So I'm now thinking about 2020, what I want to do, what I'm growing, and where I'm going to plant it. So last year's crop rotation is now in the past, and I'm now working on 2020's crop rotation. So it's really important that you almost do 2 crop rotations in 1 year. So as I've got on here, these are my beds I've drawn out. I have them numbered up so I know which beds that I'll be working in, and I now have a new one which will see me through from now until early spring next year, where I will be writing what crops are going in where, because as you'll notice, certain beds are starting to open up. So things like my broad beans, my first early potatoes, they're all starting to come out the ground. The broad beans are done, so I've cut all of them down. They've all gone into the kitchen to be used for lovely food, but I now have a bed spare, which is where my broad beans were. So in my crop rotation, my brassicas are now moving round to my bean bed, and my beans are now moving on to the next bed. The beans obviously aren't in the next bed yet, because we're not yet in winter, and I haven't planted any broad beans, but I am starting to think about what spring cabbages I want to grow. So that is then taking the broad bean place. So I've now got to prep and get that bed ready. I'll be sowing my spring cabbages, and that is where they will be going. So it's really important as well with your crop rotation that you make sure a crop is out of your area in time for your next one to go in. So how I work my bed systems is that apart from the depths of winter, most of the beds, or every part of a bed, will be used up in the whole of the summer months. The same as with the potatoes. So my potatoes, my salad potatoes and my first earlies will be out of the ground, and that will then take place of my winter leeks. So I've grown my winter leeks already. They're looking really good, nice tall long thick plants, and they will be ready to plant out where the potatoes were. So as soon as bed space becomes available, it's really good to have another crop that you can stick in that space. Stops the weeds, obviously it keeps that soil all nice and, you know, aerated, which is what you want. You don't want it getting dry and compacted. And that is the way that I try and work the veg garden. So I hope I haven't complicated this too much and you guys are just sitting there thinking, what on earth is she talking about? So obviously if you have any questions, please leave them at the bottom of the page, and like always I will try and get back to you. So it's been an absolutely fantastic year so far. There's still so much to do. We're in like the middle of the maximum amount of harvesting that there is to do. I'm uber duper busy, which I assume you guys at home are, and just enjoying this beautiful weather, the birds still singing, and lots of lovely vegetables. But just make sure you spend a little bit of time to think about what it is you'd like to grow for next spring, and you know, look up your varieties. Now is a really important time to just take that time to start thinking about the crops that I've spoken about in this video, and what you'd like to be doing, what you'd be growing and sowing over the next couple of months to see you through that spring and into summer period, so you don't have this window of no food. You know, you make sure that you can still put food on the table the early parts of the year. enjoy what's happening now, but do think about later on in the season or the start of the new season. Thanks guys for watching. I hope you guys are taking it easy through the middle of the madness of the summer growing season, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care, goodbye.